Welcome back. This is Dr. Krishna, and today we are talking about research methodology. Let's start the discussion right away. Okay. So, in this reflective approach to research methodology, I'll talk about the introduction of the whole kind of methodology in one lecture, like kind of summary of what is expected and what are the components and what is the process and what are the reasonings and so on and so forth. Okay. First, I'll talk about introductions on why this subject is important, and I'll talk about the structure of the whole syllabus that I'll be covering over the period of the series of lectures, and then we'll talk about the ethics risk assessment form. Without that, you will not be able to do any proper ethical research, especially in medicines and in pharmaceuticals and in medical research. This is so important because if you do not have a consent, you will not be able to actually collect data. And then we'll get into key skills developed by this course. And at the end, some of the modes of knowledge and so on and so forth. We'll talk about that. Let's start right away. So, normally, when we think of research, it is so wide, it is so interesting, it is so amazing concept, but it is a little bit elusive for many of the early beginners. They get lost on the idea itself. That's the reason we are going to discuss why this kind of research is important in everyday life, in business, in engineering, in mathematics, in science, and everywhere we go, even in education and so on and so forth. If you look into natural science, falsification of the old theory by the new facts and new observations and new details gives you new theory. So when you actually falsified the Newtonian mechanics, you got into Einsteinian quantum theory and also other pioneering concepts after that. Stephen Hawking challenged those notions of Einstein and others, and still God's particle. The research is under development in that area. While we talk about these kinds of models and the studies and research, it is always important to understand if I know some data from the past, if I know some pattern from the past, can I predict the future? Predicting future is not easy, but if you can do that, perhaps you can prepare for the future. You can have the benefits from the future. Like for example, if I know in a couple of weeks there will be a pandemic of some virus like COVID or others, I can prepare the country for the better. That can be very useful example in that concept, right? So when you look into this multiple ways of looking into things, in quantitative terms, that means number based, the power of prediction is pretty high. Uh, Someone will be unaware that this kind of approach can be not good because I just want to go with the flow and I don't want to predict. I just want to go with that idea. Prediction can be in ballpark figure. It can be 90% accurate. It can be 95% accurate. It can be 99% accurate, right? So it depends on your accuracy level, on efficiency level also. But uh, if you look into qualitative, that means not quantified numbers data, the other data, interview or narratives or discussions. From there, you can actually create a theory or you can even build a theory out of the data. So in quantitative terms, now when we look into that first part, of course, quantitative can be also inductive. That means data speaks to build a theory, but normally quantitative data is used for deductive reasoning. That means you have a theory, and then you collect data, and you either prove or disapprove your hypothesis that you initiated as a research question. In qualitative data, qualitative research, now, for example, um, you can have multiple observation of your nephew or your friend, and then you have an understanding and saying that my friend is the worst person in the world at hide and seek. That can be an example. But this is based on your observation that you have seen your friend playing hide and seek multiple times, and then you have started to generalize and say he is a worst person in this game. This is like data, like qualitative data, building a theory or understanding of the situation, right? Children actually do this every day. They fail, they come up, they fail, they come up, and ultimately they make a meaning and understanding. When you actually build this kind of research, then when you have a research problem, a research question, and then you do some literature search, and you start to build a data collection approach. In your data collection approach, there can be multiple ways. The sampling can be, it can be judging, it can be uh, random, it can be stratified, it can be other ways of sampling. We'll go into detail into sampling chapter. So you have a population, and then you have a sampling frame, and then you have a sample size out of that. Now, for example, if you want to study Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay, is from Maslow and Lord in 1998. If you look into that, first of all, you can choose you want to understand how this happens in female undergraduate students. So you have actually narrowed down the sample to female undergraduate students only. Or you can study male, or you can study other animals, right? So this way you can actually come to understand, for example, what is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs in that particular setting, particular segment, particular sample, right? And if you do this kind of approach, whether this is your survey or it is your other around technology or the methods or data collection method you are using, you have to understand. Depending on your research question, depending on your problem you are solving, whether you need to collect qualitative data or quantitative data, or what kind of approach you should take must be aligned. Okay, so in your, for example, qualitative data, you will not you will not lead, you will facilitate. You'll open up, and then you have again a probing approach and exploring approach and inquiry approach. In quantitative also, you have most of the time proven survey instruments of the existing construct, unless and until you would like to actually build your own construct. So I would suggest to hang on and continue with that. Okay. Then, for example, in one of the study in the survey, how common have experience of racism in some of the British population, there was a finding like enough with many of the parameters. Okay. And you have to understand after the analysis how to present the data in proper way. It can be bar chart, it can be radar, it can be other ways of presenting. Not only presenting, you have to analyze the data and you have to use statistical tools. So what is a statistical tool? if you recall, SPSS can be a very good statistical tool. Once you have collected data for the quantitative data, you can use SPSS. SPSS helps to predict through regression models. It can build all process of data coding, and then also defining variable, computing variable, and then also using a regression model. And then you have to really understand not only in general research, but in every aspect of the research, you have to really understand what is the difference between correlation and causation. So there are two terms in statistics. Sometimes people get confused with correlations and causation. So correlation is differently understood, differently analyzed and interpreted than causation. So we have to explore that in that chapter, right? Also, when you understand the reason behind a theory, behind a concept, behind a data, you can generalize and make your understanding of the world better. You can predict the future, you can make improvements, and you can have all sorts of approaches, right? Even you can, when you finish this subject, you can actually have a very good CV also that you understand the research methodology. That might be interesting aspect to look into also. In summary, what I have covered in my random rumbling and then connecting with examples and here and there. So first of all, you have to really understand the table of content of the business research, or like the syllabus of the business research or engineering research. But in a sense, not in a engineering projects are different than this one, but this is normally the survey done for product development, product improvement, or decision making in companies, or managing human resource and all sorts of things. So I'm not covering the project-based research. That means you design a product and then also test the product and verify the product. That can be an engineering project, but here it is different than that. It is similar to social science research that is applied in engineering aspect also, or in any other fields, name it. All right. So first of all, you need to, when you write your business research or your research paper, first of all, research project paper, and then also reflection. There are two parts in your assignments. Now always think about that. For example, you have to have an abstract or executive summary, then introduction and background. Then, of course, you can have aims and objectives after that, or literature review, and then based on literature review, you build your aims and objectives. I always prefer aims and objectives into introduction chapter itself. And once you have both qualitative and quantitative objectives, we are learning both qualitative and quantitative designs. So when you have both qualitative and quantitative designs, then link it with the literature review for data collection, analysis, and presentation. Okay. So now in the methodology, which one to choose first is your choice, depending on your research question or aim or objective, based on the literature that you have come up. So mixing methods is a challenge. Now, if I am exploring something new, I will go for qualitative. And when I understand emerging concepts and themes, based on that, I build a questionnaire, build constructs, and then test that in a survey for a larger validation. That means quantitative part. Or if it is existing phenomenon, then first, I start with quantitative data, survey data, analyze that, and find something as findings. And if my theory and the findings are contradicting, or there are outliers, or there are something interesting phenomenon, I would like to go deeper into understanding the findings through the qualitative research. So be careful in combining both of them. You have to really understand what is the phenomenon that you are studying and what applies and when. So in your methodology section, you will be writing it's brief about your philosophy of your research, and then you have population of the data collection, sampling frame, sampling technique, sample size, and gaining access to the data, ethical ethics form, consent form, and everything on that. Then you use proper data collection methods. For example, in qualitative, you have interviews, focus groups, discussions, or other methods. In quantitative, you have survey methods mostly. You can go for secondary data and archival data also, but that is not recommended for this course. And make sure that you collect data, do research and ethical issues, and all the tactics needed properly. Then plan for data presentation, plan for data analysis you can prepare, and then also use that in your research proposal. And at the end, you have evaluation of robustness. That means whether this research is suitable for further applications, generalizations or not, and then also whether my research is qualified, quality level, and reliable and valid, and then generalizable. It's called reliability, validity, and generalizability. RVG, RVG framework. All right. Then once you have actually built the data, analyze the data, then you combine analysis of both, make meaning out of that, and then based on your time plan that you initiated as a project proposal, whether you have arrived to the final result or not. But if it is a plan, then you need to have a plan that in Gantt chart, budgets and limitations, and then also understand that in your appendix, after the completion of the project also. That way, you will be able to build the whole research plan and research analysis, right? So, in this concept, you will be actually applying this further in your life, in your business, in your real kind of concepts of the approach, how we do this in group presentation, and then you will write your research analysis. You will prepare and present idea as a group. You get brief feedback from us, from me. You may submit slides, notes, and reflection individually. So it's a group discussion, but also your reports are individual. And at the end, you will be actually preparing the research. You will do mini survey or mini interview inside the college itself, and then come up with, or even in your workplace, and come up with a very simple research done. It's not like a dissertation, but a mini dissertation before your final year dissertation. So it will help you to actually plan for the bigger scale project. Okay? And what is the research project? And you will use this feedback and then continue further in your final defense, final dissertation. Okay? In a personal reflection, that's one part. The research report is one part, 75% of the evaluation, and 25% of the evaluation is on your reflection. And in your reflection, you will be writing your individually submitted reflection story of how the research went, what happened in the groups, and then how did you collect data, and what did you learn out of it, and how you will apply in the future. All right. So you have to identify your research questions now, and you have to design your quantitative research. You have to design your qualitative research, and you have to have alternative research methods, and you have to analyze research. Right? We will be doing all these tutorials and workshops on those, and then you will do group presentations also, and then also you will write research findings as well. Or if we agree on different mode, we can discuss that also. If you have any questions, you can contact me as you know me pretty well in your list, right? So you can go for further discussions and you can connect me LinkedIn, Facebook, and wherever you can and have a debate. All right, I think I summarize what is research, even business and engineering, and any sense you can apply in social science also. Briefly, in previous lecture, I talked about paradigms. But here I am mostly on qualitative and quantitative research methods rather than paradigms. And you may link whether these are valid in particular paradigms or not. Quantitative reasoning is mostly I think, in my observation, I need to check it, but normally this is positivist philosophy. But the qualitative data can be used in many ways in your all the paradigms, But if you can combine quantitative and qualitative, still you will be wiser because the world is not black and white. All needs multiple perspectives and multiple angles, multiple philosophies of science and social science to understand the reality. So stay in touch, keep on exploring, develop your research question, and start going further. Thank you for listening. See you in the class.